Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being well-informed. Today, we are really digging into a classic, Stephen R. Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
That's right. And, most people have heard of the habits themselves. Be proactive, begin with the end in mind, that sort of thing.
Exactly. But what often gets missed, I think, is the philosophy behind them, the real foundation.
That's our focus today.
Yeah.
We're going beneath the surface level techniques, past the buzzwords, and really looking at the philosophical core. Covey called it the character ethic.
The roots, not just the leaves, as he put it.
Precisely. Because if you've ever tried implementing these habits and found they didn't quite stick, it's often because that foundational part, the paradigm shift, was overlooked. We're looking at the being that has to come before the doing.
Okay, so let's ground this. We can start with a problem Covey describes, one that feels very real, very relatable. It's about why this internal framework is so necessary.
Yeah, the source material gives this example of a highly successful executive.
Yeah.
There's someone who, has a really forceful personality, great at controlling outcomes.
The kind of person who can walk into any meeting, any negotiation, and just steer things so skillfully that other people end up suggesting the very solution he wanted all along.
Right. And by all the typical external measures, that's textbook success, isn't it? It's the personality ethic working perfectly, mastering the skills, the attitude, the communication tactics.
But here's the kicker, the part that makes you pause.
Yeah, there's this profound disconnect. Despite all this outward success and control, the executive feels, well, deeply uneasy. He's constantly wondering what people really think about him when he's not around. And maybe the most painful part, his marriage has just gone flat. They're coexisting, but that spark, that genuine connection and spontaneity, it's gone.
And that distinction is so critical, isn't it? The quick fixes, the tools from the personality ethic, they can patch things up on the surface.
Sure, they might help you manage your image for a bit or control your behavior in a specific situation.
But they are completely powerless when it comes to these deep problems, painful problems Covey talks about, the ones that rely on real trust, vulnerability, genuine character.
It's just not what they're designed for.
Yeah.
That's like Covey quotes Thoreau, right?
Yeah.
The difference between hacking away at the leaves of a problem versus striking at the root.
Right. Trying to prune away bad behavior without changing the source.
Exactly. If your roots are things like integrity, humility, fidelity, real principles, then your relationships, your effectiveness, they'll naturally flourish. But if the roots are manipulation, image management, trying to control perceptions.
Then the leaves might look okay for a while, maybe even impressive.
For a season, yeah. But eventually the connection withers, the trust erodes. So our mission here is to understand how to actually cultivate those deep, strong roots.
Okay, let's start digging at those roots then. Section 1. The character ethic and these crucial paradigm shifts.
Right. And the best way to see why the personality ethic alone just isn't enough is through another story Covey tells. It's kind of heartbreaking, actually, about the struggling son.
Ah, yes, the parents trying so hard.
Exactly. These parents, they were doing everything they thought they should. Their son was struggling academically, socially, even athletically. And they were using all the standard positive thinking tools.
Telling him, you can do it, just try harder. All that external cheerleading.
Pure positive mental attitude techniques. Reading the self-help books, applying the methods. By the book, really.
But it just wasn't working. The son's behavior didn't change. The relationship felt strained.
Yeah, nothing shifted. And it wasn't until the parents took a really hard, honest look at themselves, at their absolute deepest unspoken feelings, that they finally saw the problem.
And the problem wasn't the son or even the techniques, was it?
No, the root issue was their own flawed paradigm. Despite all the positive words, the encouraging tone, deep down their silent perception was that their son was, quote, basically inadequate.
Wow. That's rough.
It's a cruel irony, isn't it? Their outward behavior, the leaves, looked positive. But the root belief, it was creating this self-fulfilling prophecy, undermining every single encouraging word. The son felt that underlying doubt no matter how enthusiastic they tried to sound.
That just perfectly illustrates what a paradigm is then. It's not just some intellectual concept you hold.
No, it's the fundamental lens. How you perceive, how you understand, how you interpret everything. And if you want real quantum improvements in your life, you can't just polish the old lens.
So you have to change the lens itself, change the paradigm from which all your attitudes and behaviors naturally flow.
Which is why Covey has that powerful line, being is seeing. Who you fundamentally are dictates how you see the world. And how you see the world dictates how you act.
You can try to fake the actions for a while.
But your true being, your character, it leaks out. It eventually reveals itself.
Okay, so to make this idea of a paradigm shift really land, the sources give us a couple of brilliant examples. They show how jarring and total a real shift can be. Let's start with a subway incident.
Right, so picture this. You're the narrator. You're on a subway car. It's a Sunday morning, relatively peaceful. Then, this man gets on with his kids.
And the kids are not peaceful.
Not at all. The man sits down next to you, seems completely out of it, maybe just staring blankly ahead. Meanwhile, his children are just running wild, screaming, throwing things, grabbing newspapers from people, basically causing chaos.
And naturally, you, the narrator, you start getting annoyed, irritated.
Instantly judgmental, right? Why isn't this guy doing anything? Look at these kids. Doesn't he care? You're building this whole negative story about his character.
The tension is just mounting.
Until finally you can't take it anymore. You turn to the father, maybe a bit sharp, and say something like, "Excuse me, could you please control your children?"
And the father kind of slowly looks up like he's coming out of a fog.
And he says really softly, "Oh, you're right. I guess I should do something. We just came from the hospital. Their mother died about an hour ago. And I don't know what to think. I guess I don't know how to handle it either."
Oh, man. Just topsy cold.
Complete quantum shift. In that single instant, everything changes. The irritation vanishes. The disruptive children, suddenly their behavior isn't annoying. It's understandable.
Yeah.
Maybe even heartbreaking, right? Their grief just spilling out uncontrolled.
Your whole feeling shifts from judgment to deep compassion instantly.
And notice, you didn't decide to be nicer. Your perception of reality itself changed because the facts changed. That's a paradigm shift. Powerful stuff.
Incredibly powerful. Now, the second example is different, more metaphorical, but it drives home a related point. The non-negotiable nature of the principles governing effectiveness. This is the battleship incident.
Yeah, this one comes from the Naval Institute's magazine Proceedings. It's become quite famous. Picture two battleships out at sea doing maneuvers in rough weather, fog rolling in.
Okay, visibility is poor.
Right. And the captain of the lead battleship sees a light dead ahead. Collision course. So he immediately radios the light. Change course 20 degrees immediately. Danger of collision. Standard procedure, asserting authority.
And the response comes back.
Just as blunt. Advise you change course 20 degrees.
That must have gone over well.
Not at all. The captain is furious now. He radios again, pulling rank. "I am a captain. I command a battleship. We are on critical maneuvers. Change course immediately." Laying down the law.
Escalating.
Totally. And then comes that classic legendary reply from the light source.
I am a lighthouse. Your call.
Boom. Talk about a reality check. A humbling moment. The paradigm shift there is this sudden, stark realization. Oh, this isn't defiance or incompetence I'm dealing with.
This is an immovable object, an objective reality.
Exactly. You realize you weren't arguing with another ship that could move. You were arguing with a fixed point governed by physical laws.
And that's the analogy for principles in the human dimension, right?
Perfectly. Covey argues that human effectiveness is governed by natural laws in the human dimension. Things like fairness, integrity, honesty, human dignity, service, quality, that are just as real, just as unchanging and immovable as gravity or the location of that lighthouse.
And this is a really key distinction the source makes. Principles are not the same as values.
Absolutely critical distinction. Values are subjective, they're internal. A group of criminals might value loyalty among thieves. A particular culture might value confrontation. Values can be anything.
But principles are external, objective truths, like fairness or integrity.
Right. They exist outside of us. You can choose to ignore the principle of fairness. You might even value unfairness if it benefits you short term. But the principle remains. Unfairness will eventually damage trust in relationships. It has natural consequences, whether you value it or not. The lighthouse doesn't care about your opinion.
So aligning your life with principles means aligning yourself with reality, with the lighthouse.
That's the idea behind the principle-centered paradigm. It's the only truly stable foundation because, unlike shifting values or circumstances or opinions, these natural laws are, as Covey puts it, unarguably there.
Okay, so understanding that character needs to be rooted in these objective principles sets the stage for the first big hurdle Covey describes, the private victory.
Yes. Habits 1, 2, and 3. He insists you absolutely have to win the inner battle, the battle with yourself, before you can have sustainable success with others.
It's about achieving independence before you can effectively practice interdependence.
And it's sequential. It starts with the most fundamental habit of all. Habit 1, be proactive.
This seems foundational. What does be proactive really mean in this context?
It's the bedrock. It means recognizing that between stimulus, whatever happens to you, and response, how you react, there is a space. And in that space lies your power to choose your response.
Our freedom to choose.
Yes. And that choice is based on our values and principles, not just our moods or conditions or circumstances. Proactivity is about taking responsibility for our own lives.
As opposed to being reactive.
Exactly. Reactive people are driven by external things, their feelings, the weather, how people treat them, social conditions. Covey calls this focusing on the circle of concern, all the things you worry about but can't really control.
Wasting energy complaining or blaming?
Pretty much. The proactive person, on the other hand, focuses their time and energy on their circle of influence, the things they can actually do something about.
Like their attitude, their
Mhm.
choices, their skills, how they treat others.
Precisely. Their responses, their work ethic, their preparation. And here's the cool part. The more you work on your circle of influence, the bigger it actually gets. You become more capable, more trusted, more influential.
And Covey emphasizes that this internal growth, this character development, it can't be faked. You can't just pose your way to effectiveness.
No, it's strictly sequential, like learning math. You can't do calculus if you haven't mastered algebra. If your emotional development is, say, at level 2, and you want to operate effectively at level 5,
You have to actually go through levels 3 and 4 first.
you absolutely must take that first, often difficult, step towards level 3. There are no shortcuts in building character or emotional maturity.
And taking that first step often requires humility, right?
Yeah.
Swallowing some pride.
Immensely so. The source gives this really vivid example of a father who had a terrible temper. He knew intellectually that his harshness and impatience were damaging his relationship with his daughter. He understood the concepts.
He was intellectually aware, as the text says.
Right. He could probably even give a lecture on good parenting techniques.
Huh.
But intellectual awareness is useless without taking emotional responsibility.
So what was holding him back?
He refused to admit his own low level of emotional development. He wouldn't concede that he was the one unable to control himself in stressful moments. He wouldn't accept his own weakness, his own ignorance in that area.
And Covey says admitting ignorance is the first step of learning.
Always. Until that father could swallow his pride and admit, okay, I have a problem here, my emotional control isn't where it needs to be, all his intellectual understanding was just a defense mechanism, a way to avoid the real work.
That feels like a trap a lot of smart, capable people fall into, especially professionally.
Oh, absolutely. It's far easier to analyze someone else's shortcomings or offer sophisticated advice than it is to do the hard internal work of building the emotional strength needed for patience, empathy, and taking responsibility for your own stuff.
Like those executives Covey mentions who try to buy a better culture with speeches and superficial programs.
While ignoring the underlying lack of trust or their own inconsistent behavior, they're violating that sequential inside-out process of growth.
Okay, so being proactive, habit 1, gives us the fundamental choice and responsibility. This then empowers us to define our own direction, which leads straight into habit 2.
Habit 2. Begin with the end in mind. This is the first creation, the mental creation. Habit 1 says, you are the creator. Habit 2 is about deciding what you want to create.
Using our imagination and conscience.
Exactly. It's about defining what a meaningful life looks like for you. What's your unique purpose? What contribution do you want to make? It pushes you beyond just chasing success or money towards designing a life based on principles and purpose.
And a key tool for this is thinking about our different roles and goals, isn't it?
Yes, this is crucial for balance. Covey points out a common failure. People get completely consumed by one role, usually their job, in the pursuit of success.
The climbing the ladder problem.
Right. They pour all their energy into being a great manager or executive or salesperson. But they neglect other vital roles: spouse, parent, friend, community member.
Like that executive from the beginning whose marriage had gone flat. He was winning professionally but failing personally.
The classic example of climbing the ladder, only to realize too late that it was leaning against the wrong wall. He achieved his goals, but they weren't aligned with a deeper, balanced sense of purpose.
So habit 2 is about consciously defining those roles: husband, father, manager, friend, self, and setting goals within each, guided by an overarching personal mission statement.
Exactly. That mission statement becomes your personal constitution, the standard against which you measure everything. The source mentions one executive's mission: to live with integrity and to make a difference in the lives of others. Simple, Powerful.
And that mission then guides how he allocates his time and energy, focusing on charity and sacrifice as ways to fulfill it.
It provides the why. Once that mental blueprint, that why from habit 2, is clear and deeply felt, then you can move to the physical creation.
Which brings us to habit 3. Put first things first, the execution habit.
This is where the rubber meets the road. It's about living out habit 2 on a daily, moment-to-moment basis.
Now, the source poses a really interesting question here. When people fail at execution, what's the usual suspect? Is it that they can't prioritize, they can't organize, or they just lack discipline?
What do most people jump to?
Discipline, right. If only I had more willpower.
That's the common assumption. But Covey argues that's usually not the root problem. The deeper issue is that the priorities, the why from habit 2, haven't become truly deeply planted in their hearts and minds.
So if the why isn't compelling enough, the discipline to say no to distractions just isn't there.
Exactly. If you don't have a burning yes inside, it's almost impossible to say no to all the urgent, appealing, or easy things that constantly clamor for your attention.
Which leads us to the core tool of habit 3, the time management matrix, specifically focusing on quadrant 2.
Right. Let's quickly break down the 4 quadrants. Quadrant 3 is urgent and important. These are crises, deadlines, pressing problems. We have to deal with them. Firefighting mode.
Okay. Quadrant 3 is urgent but not important. These are interruptions, some meetings, emails, other people's minor issues that feel urgent but don't align with your important goals. The noise.
The quadrant of deception, Covey calls it. It feels productive because it's busy, but it's often just reacting to others' priorities. Then quadrant 3 is not urgent and not important.
Time wasters. Busy work, mindless scrolling, excessive relaxation that doesn't actually renew you. Escape activities.
Right. The effective person tries to minimize 3 and 4. They deal with I, but they focus their proactive energy on quadrant 2.
Quadrant 2. Important but not urgent.
This is the heart of effective personal management. Activities like long-range planning, proactive work, relationship building, preventative maintenance, exercise, learning, recreation, that actually renews.
The things that build long-term capacity and effectiveness, but because they aren't screaming for attention right now, they're easy to put off.
Terribly easy. Until they eventually become quadrant night crises because we neglected them, like not maintaining equipment until it breaks down, or not investing in a relationship until it's falling apart.
And Covey argues that the ability to consistently focus on quadrant 2 has to grow from a principal center. Why is that?
Because if your center is something external, like your spouse's opinion, or making money, or seeking pleasure, or pleasing your boss, those external factors will constantly pull you back into quadrants 13 and 3. Your center won't be strong enough to resist the urgent but unimportant.
You'll be reacting to those external pressures instead of acting on your deep priorities.
Exactly. You need that internal compass, that deep sense of mission from habit 2 to give you the perspective and the power to say no to the urgent and yes to the important.
That's the bigger yes burning inside. Without it, you just get swept away by the urgent tide.
Perfectly put. And that's the failure of what Covey calls first-generation time management, just making to-do lists. Those lists often lack any real prioritization based on deep values or goals. You might cross things off, but are they the right things?
So the private victory, habits 1, 2, 3, is really about shifting from just managing time to leading yourself based on principles and purpose.
Independence, self-mastery, building the character foundation. Only then are you truly ready for the complexities of interdependence.
Which brings us to the public victory, habits 4, 5, and 6, moving from self to successful interaction with others.
And the transition point here is crucial. Covey stresses that moving into the public victory domain, dealing effectively with other people, is primarily an emotional challenge, not an intellectual one.
Meaning you need a certain level of emotional security first.
Absolutely. Think about it. Practicing things like win-win thinking, habit 4, or seeking first to understand someone else, habit 5, especially when you disagree strongly or feel threatened, that takes real inner strength.
Vulnerability, patience, courage.
Right. If your sense of self-worth is fragile, if it depends on being right or winning or external validation, then trying to truly understand someone with a different viewpoint feels dangerous. Conflict feels like a personal attack.
So where does that necessary security come from?
It comes from the private victory. It comes from what Covey calls inside-out congruence, living a life of integrity, where your actions consistently align with your deepest values and principles. Knowing you're anchored to unchanging principles gives you an internal validation that doesn't depend on external agreement.
That internal anchor gives you the strength to be open and considerate even when facing disagreement.
Precisely. Gives you the emotional bandwidth, the character strength to engage honestly and constructively.
And that strength is immediately put to the test with the cornerstone habit of effective relationships. Habit 5.
Habit 5. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. This sounds simple, but it's probably one of the hardest habits to live consistently.
Why is it so hard? Most people think they're good listeners.
We think we are, but most people listen with the intent to reply, not the intent to understand. We're filtering everything through our own perspective, our own autobiography. We're preparing our response while the other person is still talking.
Or we jump straight to fixing the problem.
Exactly. True empathic listening with the intent to understand the other person's frame of reference, intellectually and emotionally, requires immense character strength. Patience, openness, the genuine desire to see the world through their eyes.
It takes more emotional labor than just jumping in with advice.
Way more. It's much easier, Covey notes, to give high-level advice from a low emotional level, to diagnose and prescribe without really understanding the deep issue.
We see this so clearly in that father-son communication example the source provides.
Oh yeah, that's classic. The teenage son bursts out, "School is for the birds, it's useless. I just want to quit and work on cars." Total frustration.
And the father, trying to be helpful, immediately jumps in with, "What?"
All the typical roadblocks to understanding. First he evaluates, "You can't be serious. That's a terrible idea." Then he advises, "You just need to buckle down. Think about college." Then he probes, but with his own agenda. "Are you really trying? Have you talked to your teachers?"
He's listening, yes, but only to gather data to support his own argument or solution.
He's not trying to understand the feeling behind the son's words. The frustration, the sense of irrelevance, whatever's really going on for the son. The son doesn't feel heard, just lectured.
The communication channel shuts down. The father meant well, but he prioritized his logic over the son's emotion.
Which destroys the connection and trust. This is where that Greek philosophy model Covey uses is so insightful. Ethos, pathos, and logos.
Right. Logos is the logic, the words, the actual message.
Pathos is the feeling, the empathy, the emotional connection. Are you on the same wavelength?
And ethos is your credibility, your trustworthiness, based on your character and your history with the person, your emotional bank account, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And the crucial point is the sequence. Ethos and pathos must come before logos.
If they don't trust you, low ethos, or they don't feel understood by you,
Well,
low pathos.
then your brilliant logic, logos,
Mhm.
is completely useless. It will bounce right off. They'll see it as manipulation or irrelevant or just proof that you don't get it. You have to establish trust and understanding first.
So mastering habit 5, seeking first to understand, is the essential first step towards achieving habit 4. Think win-win.
Absolutely. Win-win isn't just a technique. It's a total philosophy of human interaction. It starts with the belief that there's plenty for everybody, that one person's success doesn't have to come at the expense of someone else's.
It's seeking mutual benefit in all interaction.
Right. The core commitment is to find a solution that both parties genuinely feel good about, that meets both sets of needs.
Which sounds great, but what if the other person isn't playing the win-win game? What if they're trying for win-lose?
Ah, that's where the real test comes in. And that's why the private victory and habit 5 are prerequisites. It takes tremendous courage to state your needs and feelings, and consideration to deeply understand theirs, to stick with win-win when the other side is adversarial.
You need that internal security and the skills of empathic listening.
Exactly. And the source gives a fantastic example of this in action. The executive negotiating a huge contract with a big bank.
Right. This was high stakes, a major deal.
Massive.
Yeah.
And his team knew the bank might be skeptical or even adversarial. So instead of the usual approach, walking in with their demands, ready for a fight,
They did something completely different.
they walked into the room with the bank's team, lawyers, VPs, the whole intimidating lineup, and they flipped the script. The executive leading the negotiation said something like,
We want you to write the contract first, write it exactly the way you want it so we can be absolutely sure we understand what you need and what your concerns are.
"Can you imagine the reaction?" The bank team was stunned, disarmed probably.
So the bank team spends days drafting this contract. Then what?
They present it. And instead of immediately jumping in with objections or counteroffers, the executive and his team practiced deep habit 5. They asked clarifying questions. They used empathic listening skills. So if I understand correctly, your main concern here is X, and you feel Y about it.
Rephrasing the content, reflecting the feeling.
Perfectly. They did this until the bank team felt completely, totally, undeniably understood. Until they were nodding along, saying, yes, that's exactly it.
That must have completely changed the atmosphere in the room.
It transformed it. What started as formal, maybe skeptical or hostile, became collaborative. By showing that deep respect and consideration first, pathos and ethos, the executive created fertile ground for synergy.
So when it finally came time to talk about their own needs, including the price,
The bank team was already receptive. They trusted the executive. They felt understood. The emotional hurdles were gone.
and the result wasn't just a compromise, right? It was better.
It led to habit 6, synergize. Because they'd built that high-trust, high-understanding environment, they could creatively explore options together and find a third alternative, a solution better than either side had initially proposed.
A true win-win, achieved because they sought first to understand.
Exactly. The bank signed immediately once the price was revealed because the foundation of trust and understanding made the final step easy. That's the public victory in action, interdependent success built on character and skill.
Okay, we have this powerful system. Private victory, habits 1, 2, 3, building character and self-mastery, leading to public victory, habits 4, 5, 6, enabling effective interdependence. What holds it all together? What keeps it going?
That's the final habit, habit 7, sharpen the saw. This is the habit of renewal.
Often overlooked, I suspect.
Very often.
Hmm.
If you think about habits 1 through 6, they're all about producing, making choices, setting goals, executing, interacting. Habit 7 is about maintaining and enhancing the asset that does the producing, which is you.
It's about preserving and enhancing your greatest asset.
Precisely. It's the habit that makes all the other habits possible over the long haul. Without renewal, you burn out. Your capacity diminishes.
The name comes from that analogy, right? The woodcutter.
Yeah, the story of the person sawing furiously at a tree, getting exhausted, making slow progress. Someone suggests stopping to sharpen the saw, and the woodcutter replies, I don't have time. I'm too busy sawing.
Missing the point that sharpening the tool would actually save time and energy in the long run.
Exactly. Habit 7 is about taking the time to sharpen your own saw, to renew yourself in the key dimensions of life.
And Covey breaks this down into 4 areas for balanced renewal.
Yes, ensuring a holistic approach. First is the physical dimension.
Exercise, nutrition, stress management, taking care of your body.
Right. Treating your body not just as something that carried your head around, but as a vital tool. Regular exercise isn't just about health. Covey emphasizes it builds your proactive muscles, enhances resilience, sharpens mental acuity.
Okay, physical. What's next?
Second is the spiritual dimension. This isn't necessarily religious, though it can be. It's about connecting with your core, your center, your value system, renewing your commitment to your principles.
So things like meditation, spending time in nature, reading inspiring literature, prayer, clarifying your values.
Exactly. Activities that lift you, inspire you, reconnect you to your purpose. This dimension fuels habit 2, keeping your end in mind clear and compelling.
Got it. Third dimension.
The mental dimension. This is about continuous learning, expanding your mind. Reading broadly, writing, planning, visualizing, engaging with new ideas.
Keeping the mind sharp, avoiding stagnation.
If you stop learning, stop thinking critically, stop challenging yourself mentally, your saw gets dull pretty quickly. Education shouldn't stop when formal schooling ends.
Makes sense. And the final dimension.
The social-emotional dimension. This one is interesting because it ties back into the public victory habits, but it's about renewing yourself through those interactions.
How does that work?
It's about making consistent deposits in the emotional bank accounts of others through service, empathy, intrinsic security, and practicing habits 4, 5, and 6 authentically. When your relationships are based on win-win and understanding, they become a source of strength and renewal, not drain.
So living the public victory habits with integrity actually renews your social and emotional well-being.
Yes. When you practice these 4 dimensions of renewal consistently, physical, spiritual, mental, and social-emotional, you create this upward spiral of growth. You're not just maintaining, you're constantly increasing your capacity.
Sharpening the saw makes the whole system sustainable and, ideally, ever improving.
That's the goal. Continuous improvement, learning, and growth, fueled by regular, balanced renewal.
Okay, stepping back and looking at the whole framework, habits 1 through 7, what's the single biggest takeaway?
For me, it really hammers home the absolute necessity of the inside-out approach. You just can't shortcut character.
Right. True effectiveness isn't about slapping on some techniques or trying to manipulate perceptions.
No, it's the often slow, sometimes difficult, but ultimately essential work of building a principle-centered character from the inside out.
Starting with that private victory, taking responsibility, habit 1, defining your purpose, habit 2, and living by priorities, habit 3. That builds the foundation.
That internal integrity and security then gives you the courage and consideration needed for the public victory thinking win-win, habit 4,
Mm.
understanding others deeply, habit 5, and creating synergy, habit 6.
And the whole thing is kept vital and growing through consistent renewal, habit 7.
It's a powerful integrated system. And it stands in stark contrast to those superficial attempts we talked about earlier, trying to fix deep trust issues with, mandated smile training or slick communication workshops that ignore the underlying character flaws or toxic climate.
Those external interventions just hack at the leaves, maybe even create more cynicism when the roots are unhealthy.
Exactly. They can feel manipulative because they often are manipulative when not backed by genuine character and principle.
So that brings us to a final thought for you, the listener, to consider. Reflect on your own life, maybe your professional world or personal relationships.
Think about the challenges you face in being effective, in connecting with others, in getting the results you want.
What is one piece of smile training or external intervention, maybe a specific technique, a communication tactic, a management fab that you find yourself relying on?
And then ask the tougher question. What deeper, perhaps unspoken paradigm may be a belief about your own inadequacy or a fundamental lack of trust in others or a fear of conflict is that external technique trying and probably failing to cover up?
It's an invitation to look past the leaves, past the immediate behaviors and tactics.
And really examine the roots. Where are your actions truly grounded? In solid principles or in shifting sands?
A challenging question, but potential transformative. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.